So you've been on Taskrabbit for a week, maybe a month, and you're asking yourself now, how do I get more clients? There's not a whole lot of jobs out here. Am I doing something wrong? Well, let me answer those questions for you today. I'm MaceValor, and welcome to DIY Valor episode 3. So today's episode comes from a viewer-submitted comment on my last video. You can check that up wherever the little I comes up at. And I really don't want to say this wrong, but I'm probably going to. It's either Stefan or Steven, one of the two. I'm just going to say Stefan. Stefan Flynn writes, "Great video, would love more gig economy related videos. Why is Taskrabbit your preferred platform? Also, what are your tips for gaining more Taskrabbit requests? Lowering per hour prices." Ooh, very good questions, and well, let's just get right into it. So first and foremost, you want to know why I think that Taskrabbit is the best gig economy platform to be on. Obviously, when we're talking about handyman type stuff. Now, there are other options out there. You got Tackle, you got Pulse, you got Handy, and I might be forgetting some, but for the most part, those are the ones that I've experienced. And the thing about Taskrabbit that makes it awesome, number one, by and large, above any of the other ones, it's communication. Communication is key to do any job successfully, especially when you're doing some sort of handyman job. You got to know what the client is to expect from your services when you get there, and it's best to know that ahead of time. That way you can make sure you have everything you need in case you got to pick up something extra. And the problem with Tackle and Handy, those two specifically, is there's no communication whatsoever. There's no communication with the people that run the platform. There's no communication between the person doing the job and the clients. I know with Tackle, you can't even communicate with them until like you're on your way. Same thing with Handy. You have like a 3-hour window before the job even starts that you can actually organize anything. And then there's all this like organizational stuff where with Handy you get to have the opportunity to set your schedule, but it's not very like fine-tuned because there's no communication. And with Tackle, it's more of like an on-demand thing, so you kind of already have to be free in order to be able to do those things. But with Taskrabbit, the fact that you can communicate with clients ahead of time, you can set your schedule out, you can reschedule if necessary, the fact that I can engage with my clients beforehand, that is definitely the by and large the number one thing that makes this platform so awesome. And definitely the fact that I can set my own rate. You know, with Handy, it's, you know, some jobs were nice. They were flat rate, and I would get there and it would be like quoted as a 3-hour job. I'd get the flat rate for it, but I'd be there maybe an hour, maybe an hour and a half. I was able to do it very quickly, mainly because of all the tools that I have, and I was able to successfully make a nice, decent chunk of money with it. But the fact that it is flat rate is kind of like hit or miss.
I guess they never miss, huh?
And the main problem with that comes from the fact that sometimes I'd get a job that the clients wouldn't buy everything appropriately. And so I'd get there and they want me to put far more stuff together than was actually necessary for the quoted job. And because the communication between myself and the platform was so difficult, it created strain on me and the clients. With Taskrabbit, and you know, we've had these exact same issues before with the IKEA assembly program, where someone will go in manually on the website, order the parts that they want assembled, and I'll get there and it's far more stuff. Even though we've communicated it ahead of time, I'll get there and the client will be like, "Oh yeah, I have all this other stuff." It's like, "Well, do you have a receipt for that stuff?" It's like, "Oh yeah, somewhere, just go ahead and get together, I'll find it." And I won't touch the other stuff unless I know for sure that it's been paid for, so that I can communicate that with Taskrabbit. And 9 times out of 10, they just say, "Oh no, never mind, don't worry about it." But being able to set your own rate is amazing. So for the non-IKEA assembly jobs, by and large, it's all, hey, this is how much I will do this particular job per hour. And it's wonderful. It truly, honestly is. There's no bidding war, whereas Tackle, it's a race to the bottom. A job gets put out, you get an alert, you click on it, and you put in, "Hey, this is how much I'll do this job for." And you got, for everyone else in your area that's doing that sees that same notification, they're going in and they're like, they don't know what the other person bid on, so they're going to bid low. Now, in a contractor's world, bidding is normal. I mean, I grew up, my mom owning her own drywall company, she would go out and do bids all the time. And customers, you know, like they would say, okay, I'm going to get some other bids, no worries. And they would have people come out, take a look, and they, you know, it'd be that kind of back and forth, the bidding war. In the contracting world, it's relatively normal for that to happen. But in the gig economy, that's horrible because we're not physically there to actually see it. Cool thing about Tackle, same thing with Taskrabbit, is you get pictures ahead of time. When the client has a specific job, they provide photographs, and that's wonderful. The downside of it, though, is you're still not physically there. To be able to the downside being that you're still not physically there to properly assess everything. Leading back to Taskrabbit, you can at least communicate and send pictures back and forth to one another, no problem. There's also the option to actually have a phone call as well, which I would recommend keep phone calls to the minimum, and anything you talk about in the phone call, put it back in chat and make sure the client agrees to whatever the conversation was. You want to make sure that everything in the app is right there. You want to make sure if anything bad ever were to happen, or if there's some sort of discrepancy or something, that if it has to go forward to support, you have the chat log there that proves everything that you're trying to prove. And I guess last but not least, the thing I love about it is the payments. The payments are quick and they're seamless. You know, with every platform, there's going to be some payment issue for someone out there, and I've experienced with TaskRabbit payment issues, but they've been rectified pretty quickly because of communication. The fact that I can get a hold of these people and let them know, like, hey, there's a pay discrepancy. Can we talk about this? All right, sweet. Thank you so much. But usually it's about 4 to 5 business days after I've done a task to when I actually receive my money. And sometimes they lump it up really quick. So if I have done several days worth of jobs, there could be a really big payment that I'm not expecting for like after the weekend. But, you know, because I've done all these other jobs, for whatever reason, they kind of lump up in the fewest amount of transactions that they can. So it's nice. Sometimes I won't be expecting to get paid from a job, and like I said, until after the weekend, but it'll just come through so much quicker, and that's amazing. But the meat and potatoes of this video is, what are my tips for getting more clients? Wow. Actually, I really did write notes on this entire video, which is something I hardly ever do. I really just fly by the seat of my pants and just ad-lib everything, but this was important. This was important to you, Stephen, Flynn, but commenter in the last video. Go check it out. This was important to you, so I wanted to make sure I took it seriously. So for you and for everyone else that wants to know, how do I get more clients? Like, what are the tips? What should I do? And you're concerned, hey, should I lower my rates? This is how I feel about the lowering your rates thing. Do not lower your rates. See, the thing is, if everyone out here, I'm in Las Vegas, if everyone out here had the bare minimum, every tasker across the board, if we all, let's say furniture assembly, for example, if every single person put their rate of furniture assembly for $30 an hour, we would be making a lot more money. But the downside is, even though there's no official bidding war on certain tasks, there's kind of a subconscious one that's out there. Clients like to go on and they see, how can I get the best work for the cheapest price? But that doesn't mean that they're going to want someone that's bottom tier. You could have someone that put their furniture assembly rate at $15 to $16 an hour, right? And they still probably won't get hired because clients, that's indicative of the quality of their work. It's like, well, why is this person so cheap? Let me look at their profile. Oh, I've looked at their profile. They've done hardly any jobs. So if you're brand new and you're first starting out, I don't recommend lowering your rate so low just to undercut everyone else, because that does two things. One, it's not going to guarantee you work, period. Two, it's definitely going to impact the gig economy on that platform around you. You know, if you have a surge of new people that come in and all of them decide, all right, well, all these guys are asking for $30, $35 an hour, I'm gonna undercut all of them. I'm gonna steal all the work that I can. You know, I got a fuel efficient car, I got a couple hand tools on me. You know, I'm gonna drop it down. They're all at 35. I'm gonna offer $20 an hour for my services. That doesn't mean that you're gonna get all the work. I've had a lot of clients that don't mind my rate, which is across the board, it's an average of $27 an hour. It's like on their end, you know, they obviously a little bit more because of you know, Taskrabbit has their fee on top of it. But oh wow, man, I'm telling you, a lot of clients don't mind paying extra for good quality work, and that follows suit with reviews. So what I would highly recommend is that you research your market and price yourself accordingly. So for example, the reason why I chose my rate at $27 an hour is because 25 to 27 for various tasks is the average, and that's what I decided to go with. You see, I didn't want to push myself up too high, but I didn't want to push myself so low that I wasn't making any money. If you're going to be active on this platform, you got to take it serious. And one of the key things is you got to research. You got to research your competition. You got to realize, like, hey, there are other people on this platform that are doing jobs out here. How do I fit in? How do I adjust myself to fit with everyone else that's working? So what you got to do is you got to make sure that you download the Taskrabbit app, not the Tasker app, because you've already got that. Get the Taskrabbit app. Make yourself a profile on the client side, and then just come up with a fake task or whatever, just so that you get access in and you can see the other people in your area, what their rates are, and it also gives you a good indication of, like, hey, this guy's profile looks like this. Maybe I should change up mine so it looks a little bit better, a little bit more presentable. And that's a huge one. You got to make sure that your profile is both personable and professional at the same time. You want to, you got to understand, you're walking into these people's homes. You're doing work in their house. And sometimes they want to make sure that the person that's coming in, is a decent human being to some degree, someone that they can kind of click with on some level. So you got to make your profile presentable in such a way that it's like, oh wow, I want this person to come by and work with me. They seem really cool, or they seem really down to earth. But at the same time, you want to stress the professionalism. You want to demonstrate, like, oh, I have, in a professional capacity, done X, Y, Z. This is why I'm good for this task. I've had a lot of profiles that I've seen out in the Las Vegas area, and these are people that I've worked with before, and they do great work, but their profiles, it leaves a lot to be desired. And that's mainly because their professionalism is a little wonky. They'll talk about, oh, furniture assembly once again, and their profile will say, oh, I've put all kinds of furniture together. I put all the furniture in my house together. That's cool, that's great, but does that scream professional? Does that scream like, hey, I've done all these jobs in a professional capacity? That's what means a lot. You see, what I did is I kind of blended the two into one. Mine was very personable, and the level of professionalism that I put in was I stressed that the work that I do is quick, clean, and it's safe. And that's basically all the client wants to hear. They want to make sure that, hey, this person's not going to wreck my home, they're not going to wreck the furniture, and they're going to come in here and they're going to do the job right the first time. And that screams professionalism. I didn't go into this huge, elaborate thing like, oh, I've worked at this place and done this, and I've worked at this place and done that. I showcased that I have a very professional manner when I do a certain job. That's what I mean by professionalism. Because there's a lot of people on the platform that have never done furniture assembly before, and this is like their first run at it. They might have put a couple things together in their apartment, their home, or what have you. But you got to stress to some degree that if you haven't done it in a professional capacity, that when you walk into their home, that you are going to do it in a professional capacity. See, the thing is, a lot of clients, they don't understand what the gig economy is all about. They don't understand how the independent contractor thing works. So when we walk into their home, a lot of times people think that we are employees of Taskrabbit. Or for the IKEA assembly, they think that we work for IKEA. And so they have this particular vision of how those things are supposed to be done. They look at you as a professional that works for a company, not an independent professional that works with a company. The gig economy platform of Taskrabbit is an intermediary. It's just a platform that, it's like a headhunting service. It connects clients to people that can perform work. And that's how it works. And that's usually how I try to describe it to my clients, whenever they're curious as to, well, if you're not an employee, then what exactly are you? But you definitely got to have a good profile, all right? Your picture says 1,000 words. It screams everything about you. If you have a profile picture and it's got like a Snapchat filter on it, you might want to get rid of that like immediately. And it's kind of sad because I wish that there would be a lot more girls. Trust me, there are a lot of girls on the platform, but when you look at their profile, it shows you how many tasks that they have done. And it's kind of sad because a lot of women just, when you think of a handyman, women are super capable of doing these things, but clients, it's like this whole subconscious ingrained thing. It's like they would prefer to hire a man because traditionally men are more handyman. as you would imagine. Growing up, my mom, she owned her own drywall company, and she bust ass, like no joke, man. And I'm telling you, women are far more capable than, unfortunately, society leads us to believe. And that's why I would hope, like, these females that are out there, if you're watching this, you want your profile picture to showcase that you can actually go in there and do it. You can have a nice, cute, dolled up picture, but leave that for Tinder. Don't put that on here. This is something more professional. So you want to showcase that level of professionalism and work. Same thing for the guys. You don't want to put up a picture where you just look like you're running through the motions. You want to put like some sort of smile on, or you want to showcase something about you in your photograph that says, hey, I'm a friendly, professional individual. I can easily come in and assist you. Picture screams 1,000 words. Make sure you have an appropriate picture for your profile. See, the thing is, it's one of those things, when I first started off Taskrabbit, it's hard to get jobs initially because you're brand new. You might get 1 or 2 a week, maybe. I mean, now I got like a full load. I mean, fortunately, I've got some free time today, but I'm telling you, it gets crazy. Once you get after I got 10 reviews, I skyrocketed. I was just getting hired back to back, and my rate at the time was about $23, $24 an hour. I gave myself a raise over time. You'll notice that as you get more reviews, as your profile shows that you've done more tasks, you can justify a higher rate. So anytime you do a job, at the end of it, always inform the client. Just so you know, in about 15 or 20 minutes, you'll be getting an invoice for the services that were provided today, along with a link to my profile, a promo code for the next time you use me, and then definitely stress, hey, if you get an opportunity, please leave a review about your experience. I'm telling you, tips are nice. Go for the review. Tips are always appreciated, do not get me wrong. But I would rather have a written review than a tip any day of the week. And the reason why is people that are hiring handymen to come into their home, they read reviews. They go into the reviews. They look at your profile. Going back to the whole, why don't I stress in my individual tasks about my, experience in the trade? I do that in my bio. My bio is detailed out with my professional background. They look at your profile, they look at the reviews. Clients, like, when someone's coming to do work in their home, when they're paying this much money for a service, they want to make sure they get the right person for the job. So you want to make sure your profile's on point. You want to make sure you get like as many reviews as you possibly can. And of course you want to, because reviews lead to more work. That's why reviews are so much more worth so much more than tips. You might get like tip $10, $20, $40. That's great. That's awesome. It's nice to have that pocket change on you. But would you rather have $40 today or a full workload for the whole week? I would rather get hired on for more and more and more jobs than just getting stuck with just the one and a tip. And this thing comes back to the whole market research thing. If you're living in an area where they allow same-day tasks, you need to turn that on. If you have nothing going on that day, let's say you're going around doing Postmates, Grubhub, Uber, like if you're doing some other gig economy thing and you're going around town and all that, you got to turn on same-day tasks. And the cool thing about same-day tasks is because it's such a last-minute thing, a lot of taskers that are out busy and they're working and they're going through everything, they don't have time today to turn that on. So what you can do is you can turn on same day, put all the tasks that you're willing to do same day, and oh wow, what else does that mean? You can also increase your rate. Now I'm not telling you to jack it up to extraordinary amounts, but hey, if you're listed at $25 an hour for furniture assembly, let's say, and you're not getting any jobs come in, turn on same day and then up your rate to $30 an hour. And clients, they don't mind paying a little extra to get the job done a lot sooner. You'll definitely notice that. All right, let's talk about some quick tips for the platform real quick. There's your advice on how to get more clients, in a steady fashion. But I've got some major notes here that you guys might want to listen to. Now look, if you're going to want to do this full time, you got to take it serious. And what I mean by that is make business cards. When you make business cards that promote your services on the platform, at the end of every job, give 1, 2, 3 of them. Give them to your clients because they might hire you again, or they might say, hey, there is this guy that came by my house and fixed my light fixture. he could probably do something for you. Here's his card. Now on that card, you don't want to put your personal phone number. What I would highly recommend is that you get a Google Voice number and have it redirect to your phone number. So they call your Google Voice number, but it obviously rings on your end of the line. And then you could pick it up, no problem, and it's your business line essentially. I've had a bad experience handing out my phone number to clients, and it's been really nuts. I had one client that was just an older woman that was lonely, and she would call me at 1 o'clock at night and just want to chit chat. And I would be tactful because she hired me several times, and I would say, hey, was there anything you needed for work, because it's really kind of late and I got to get up early in the morning. Got to be tactful. But it was unfortunate. It got to the point where I literally had to block the number, where she was calling me every 3 or 4 days just to talk. And I'd be tactful about it, but I'd be like, hey, if this is not related to work, I really need to get going. If you have a bad experience with a client, you're doing a job and you're just not jiving right, don't be afraid to fire your clients. If you get a client that just doesn't seem to get how the platform works, or they're just a bit too, I don't even know how to describe it, but sometimes clients can be too much. Don't be afraid to downvote them. When you're done with the task, send them your invoice, rate your client, and there have been many times where I've had clients that are just, I don't want to work with this person again. I don't want to come here. Like, they might have more work for me, that's great, but this I don't feel right about the situation. They're making me trying to do my job a lot harder than it really should be. And I'll just downvote them. I'll just put the thumbs down. I did it today, actually. There was a job that I had over in Henderson. I had to put together a wardrobe for an older Asian couple, and wow, that was quite the experience. You see, I get there, the husband's in the garage. The husband, great dude, man, just like super happy to meet me, shakes my hand and everything, shows me where we're gonna set it up at in the house. Now the unit was in the garage, in the boxes and all that, and I was like, oh, well, is it okay if I set it up inside? And he's like, oh, no, there's no room. And I'm like, are you sure? He's like, yeah, there's no room. So I'm like, is it okay if I look? And that's when he showed me where it was going to go. And I was like, oh, this will be perfect. And it was the perfect amount of space. And I was like, hey, it's going to be a lot easier to put it together in here than it will be to put it together out there and then try to bring it into the house. It's going to be heavy. It's going to be wonky. It's going to be way better to get it done in here. And he was understandable. He was cool. He's like, you're the professional, you know what you're doing. And that's exactly what I did. I went in and set it up in the bedroom where it was going to be placed. But the wife didn't like that. I met her as well, and she said hello, but she seemed really uneasy. And wow, that was quite the experience, because she started yelling at her husband, and I don't know what language it was, but it was not English, and they were yelling back and forth, and she kept pointing at me and going like this to the room, and I could only assume what they were talking about. But you don't assume, because you make an ass out of you and me. But it made me uncomfortable, the fact that I was being pointed at by a client, and they were yelling in a language I couldn't understand. And then she just insisted on standing like literally right over my head the entire time, and it was really difficult to even work in there, because it was kind of a tight spot, but I made it work, no problem, got it done in an hour and a half. And wow, that was something else, because she just was all in my business the entire time, which is her right, it's her home. If she were to stand off a little bit and watch me the whole time, she has every right to do that. But the fact that she would be standing right where I needed to be at all moments made just working there very difficult. And I kept having to say, excuse me, oh, I need to get over here, and stuff like that. And it just made the experience really bad. And I kept trying to tell them, like, hey, this is going to be a pretty heavy unit when it's set up. And I'm going to, if you want, I can mount it to the wall for you, but it's really your guys' call. I highly recommend that you do. And they didn't want me to. And then when I finally stood it up, got it up against the wall, and I showed them just like, hey, like, you open this door, it's going to fall forward, because these glass doors. And they're like, oh, yeah, okay, mount it to the wall. And so I did, and it was all fine and dandy. And then I left, and then I invoiced them, did the little thing that I do. I said, goodbye, you guys hope you have a good time, and all that stuff. And I sent them their invoice, and I downvoted them, because I don't want to work in a place like that again. It's perfectly fine if a client wants to watch me while I work the entire time. They have every right in the world to do that. But I do not appreciate them being in my physical workspace to where it actually impacts my performance on the job itself. Even after I would explain, like, hey, I kind of need some room here, it just gets to the point where it's too much. Like I said, some clients can be too much sometimes. So don't be afraid to downvote a client. I'm telling you, it's gonna save you in the long run. And of course, I put shoe covers on. Of course I put shoe covers on. I try everywhere I go to put shoe covers on, unless it's like a moving job and I'm constantly in and out of the house. There's no point at that point. Last minute tip, here's a massive one. Last minute rescheduling. So let's say you have a task and the client hired you 3-4 days ago, and hey, this task, it's like a 1 to 2 hour job, or it doesn't matter how long it is, but let's say you have the job and it's less than 24 hours away. The job comes up tomorrow morning, right? And you're like, all right, this is cool, this is awesome, I'm gonna get ready to do this job. And then less than 24 hours, the client hits you up and says, oh, hey, I need a last minute reschedule. That's a very rocky thing, and it's kind of up to you. One of the things about rescheduling is if a client reschedules and you do the reschedule with them and you choose a new date and time, they can cancel it and not receive a fee. In which case, you don't receive your cancellation fee, your equivalent of 1 hour's worth of work. And that's why I say don't reschedule, unless you gotta have some wiggle room somewhere. There are some clients I make exceptions for. If I don't do this very often, because it's usually not really worth my time, because I also include drive time on how long a certain job's going to take. I don't charge them for job time, but for my own personal scheduling, I have to include drive time in my own calculations of how can I do these different jobs that I have set up throughout the day. So it's very important to keep my schedule and my workflow relatively good. So if I have my schedule set up so that I can do these 3-4 jobs, and a client wants to reschedule one of the jobs and either put it to a later time in the day or even the next day or something like that, if it's longer than an hour, if it's like a 2 hour or more job, I usually have no problem rescheduling. If it's a 1 hour job, that's kind of set in stone in my schedule, and I do not do reschedules for 1 hour jobs, because I've had this in the past, where I'll reschedule last minute for a client, and it's like, oh, the stuff wasn't delivered, or it'll, usually if it wasn't delivered, you can't physically be there to do it anyway, so it's kind of justified to reschedule at that point. But usually, like, they'll come up with some excuse like, oh, I have this other thing going on, can we reschedule? And if it's like a 1 hour job, a lot of times I don't. Like I said, unless there's a very specific reason why and it makes sense, but a lot of the times I don't. Because I've had it in the past where someone will like, hey, I need you to reschedule this. And I'll agree to the new date and time, I'll reschedule that date and time, and then right after it's set in stone in the app and I've rescheduled, they cancel the task. And that's it. And then once they cancel the task, I can't talk to them anymore. And it's usually because something happens, or they decide, oh, I can do it on my own, or this, that, like whatever happens. And they realize like, oh, well, if I don't cancel this, I'm going to get a fee. They'll still show up, or I don't want to get a fee, so I can't convince them to cancel the task. So what I'll do is I'll reschedule it after 24 hours so that I can cancel it, not receive a fee, don't have to worry about doing the job at all. So I'm not saying like, oh, here's a good way to get money from clients. I'm just saying it's like, you got to think this back to professionalism. You schedule something with the company to come out and do something, and you cancel last minute. That company, that individual coming out, has formulated their schedule to work in accordance with your requests, and it's extremely unfair for you to just go in and be like, oh no, I don't want to do this anymore last minute, and try to be sneaky about it. Like, tell the tasker like, hey, can you switch this because this happened? Yeah, sure, no problem. Okay, now I get to cancel. Bam, now I'm all good to go. That's why the cancellation fee is there, because we put our schedules up a certain way, and having that last minute reschedule can really throw our scheduling off. A lot of times these last minute reschedules, I've had it to where it's like, all right, this place I got to go is like 30-40 minutes away from here because of traffic, so I'm gonna head out now. It's like an hour before the job starts. I'm gonna make sure I have ample time to get there, and make sure I'm there a little early, make sure I'm ready to go. And I'll get a client like that will respond like, hey, I'm on my way, and they'll be like, oh, can you reschedule this? And I'll be like, well, in the past I've said yeah, and then they cancel right then and there. And then I've had times where it's like it's all good to go, and they'll be like, hey, can you reschedule this? And it's just crazy, man. I just do it for you, man. With me, if it's a small job, no exceptions for the most part. But larger jobs, I have no problem rescheduling. If it's a job where it's like, let's say it's a 3-4 hour job, it's a pretty sizable job, I don't mind rescheduling those. And that's because it works one of two ways. If I reschedule that job, that means that I have an opportunity to earn 3 to 4 hours worth of work, right? Worth of payment. And I'll just have to do that at a later time. If it works within the schedule, then no problem. But if it's I want to be able to work with these clients, right? I mean that's basically what it comes down to. I'll reschedule the bigger jobs because I don't want to lose out on that. And if I don't, and the client ends up canceling, then I only get the I would only get the cancellation fee for 1 hour, which would not amount up to the amount that it could have been. So for the bigger tasks, it's very beneficial to work with the client, reschedule, no problem, because you'd only be missing out on chump change in comparison to what you could have been making with them. I think I've rattled on long enough. If you guys want to check out my last video up here somewhere, it's about all the tools that I use on a daily basis. If you want to not worry about looking at the video, but you want to get a nice list of some of the core tools that I would recommend that you would use, look at the description down below. I've put links out there, affiliate links, of course, full disclosure, down below. Go ahead and check them out. You see if it's something that you would like to work with as well. Probably good for your kit going forward. Yeah, so those would essentially be those things down there, but I definitely recommend you watch the video. It's quite a long one, but trust me, it's filled with relevant information for tools and equipment and whatnot. Also, subscribe to PewDiePie. What are you doing? We cannot let T-Series win. I've got to do my part, so I'm putting it out there. And of course, last but most certainly not least, I've been your oh so beloved and glorious MaceValor. And I'm signing off.